So what historical event would you have loved to be a part of? And you can be biblical.
Ooh.
I had it written down as Old Testament, New Testament. You could pick one.
Okay.
From each.
Okay. I would say New Testament, Pentecost, for sure. Crazy.
Yeah.
Upper room. I don't know what it says tongues of fire.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like. Said there was like a rushing wind inside of the room that they were in, and 3,000 people get saved in one day. It's a pretty good message from Peter. So,
yeah, I like it.
Would have loved to have been a part of that. I think that's pretty cool. Old Testament, if I had to go Old Testament though, obviously I feel like you got to be a part of the Exodus. Like if you're doing biblical anyway, like
who doesn't want to
Red
see
Sea parting.
parted?
Come on, man.
Did you see that selfie of Moses? He's like, we're about to part this sea, and he's got all his people behind him.
That's awesome.
It's like if Moses had a selfie.
Yeah, I just imagine Bruce Almighty with the soup, you know, just like
what a great
parting
movie.
the so good.
A great movie.
A classic.
You can't. I love that movie, and pretty much anything Jim Carrey did back then.
Yeah, The Grinch. We just watched that with my son for the first time.
One of the best.
He's 5. He thought it was hilarious. I thought he was gonna be scared. He does like the Grinch, and I thought he was gonna think, oh no, cover his eyes. He thought it was hilarious, the whole thing.
That one out of the way. What puts you in a good mood immediately?
Oh, good mood immediately. Football.
Yeah.
Good and bad mood. Good and bad. There it is.
Everybody.
You can see this right here.
Cowboys.
Go
So
Cowboys. We done boys.
Speaking of football, how do you feel about the San Francisco 49ers?
I feel like no one's going to stop them.
You hear that, Jesus?
No one's going to stop them.
Yeah.
Is he a 49ers fan?
Yeah. Big time. We have a big
He's not
rivalry.
from Cali, is he?
No, he's from New Mexico.
Okay, but that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. So I feel like you either kind of have to go to Arizona or Texas, or you got to go out west to Cali for that. So that makes more sense. 49ers, they're good, dude.
They are, but
they got everybody.
I think the Cowboys are on fire right now.
Yeah,
but they are beatable. Everybody's beatable.
Dak looks pretty good, but on the other side of 49ers, I mean, the defense, you got Chase Young now. You got defensive ends on both sides that can destroy anybody. Yeah. And but we have CD, and our defense is pretty solid too. Our secondary is incredible. So
if he can get that ball to CD,
if Dak is on point, if Dak isn't overthrowing people, and if he's making good decisions, we win.
Yep.
But the 49ers are just so consistent. It'd be so hard, I feel like, to beat them. So we'll see.
Maybe they'll all get the flu.
Yeah. Cowboys had the flu. There's like 10 of them that had the flu in that other game that nobody really knew about. So I don't know.
All right, let's see here. What is the most dangerous animal you could beat in a fight to the death?
That I could beat?
The most dangerous animal.
Oh, gosh. Dude.
Only one survives.
Only one survives? Man, that's tough. I don't think I could go lion or tiger. They would destroy me. Bear, gone. I'm dead immediately.
People survive those. They don't necessarily win.
Barely.
They don't win the fight.
Yeah, they're not winning.
They don't kill the bear. The bear runs away.
One of them runs away. One of them barely. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to go with like bobcat.
Yeah, maybe.
Small.
I was going to say house cat.
The Plum Creek bobcat that's in our neighborhood that everybody thinks is like a pet, but yeah, I could probably take
cruising
that
around the golf course.
Yeah, exactly. I was out there one time late at night, saw those eyes, and I said, nope, time to get out of here.
Yeah. I saw one. I'm pretty sure I saw one out. What's that park out there in San Marcos? Purgatory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saw one out there?
Yeah. I was walking, and I looked because I heard something, and it looked like a cat running away from me. I was like, that's a really big cat.
Yeah.
It must be
There's
lost.
some coyotes around, too,
But
though.
it was a cat.
Okay.
And I was like, that's a bobcat.
Yeah.
After that, I got a walking stick with a point on it.
Yeah. Ain't messing with that. No, sir.
All right, one more.
Okay.
What would you pick if you were able to recover one item from your past that you lost?
One item from my past.
Yeah, something you lost. Like a wallet. Maybe not a wallet.
My first Nokia brick phone.
Oh.
Because that thing was legendary. The T9 texting, 1, 2, 3, 4. You got to hit 4 times. Yep. Was it for S? You know what I mean?
Good on the BlackBerry.
Dude, I still feel like I have it just remember. I had 13 phones growing up. 13. Because I kept losing them. My mom kept giving me a new one. I don't know why. I guess she had to get in touch with me.
Right.
You know?
She had to get in touch with you.
I had a razor. It was good stuff.
I
good
never
times.
had a razor.
You never had one?
Never had a razor.
It was awesome. They
Yeah,
were great.
Nokia.
Razor, the Nokia brick phone.
What was that one that had the slide out from the side?
Oh, was that wasn't
love
Black?
that
Was that BlackBerry?
It wasn't BlackBerry. It
was another one.
Samsung or something.
I can't remember.
But it would slide in and slide out. It was about this size.
Yeah.
Keyboard.
Good times, man.
Good times. All right. All right, we're warmed up.
There we go.
So let's talk about you.
Yeah, man.
Let's talk about Trevor. So you're from Round Rock?
Yeah.
Tell me about growing up in Round Rock.
Originally from Round Rock. Was born in 92, so it was before even Round Rock really had kind of blown up, you know. Hayes County obviously is blown up now, but in kind of almost in a similar fashion. But growing up in Round Rock, went to a church called Shoreline up there, and went to school, private school my whole life. And my mom was always a teacher at the few schools that I went to. So that was a lot of fun, having my mom around and going to private school, Christian school, and learning about God and faith and all that stuff. But at the same time, you know, it's weird because in Christian school, private school, you have, you know, pre-K through 12 sometimes. So
Yeah. Every
my mom is right down the hallway teaching the 4-year-olds, and I'm, you know, in 5th grade or whatever it might be. So that was kind of fun. But we moved to Kyle. My grandparents moved to Kyle in 2000, and still, I always tell people there was nothing in Kyle back then. You know, anybody that's been from around Hayes County, they know Kyle had a Dairy Queen and a downtown. That's all that was here back in 2000, you know? So then my family moved in 2007. I was a sophomore in high school, and that's how we ended up here in Kyle. So still went to private school in downtown Austin, but started working at the Chick-fil-A here in Kyle when they very first opened the Chick-fil-A. I was one of the very first employees.
OG.
Yeah, I was an OG Chick-fil-A employee, which is the most stereotypical, like, white Christian kid thing to do.
I'm going to be a pastor. I worked at Chick-fil-A.
That's right, dude, is to work. I'm the most stereotypical dude that you could possibly imagine. So, but yeah, worked at Chick-fil-A for a while and ran that drive-through like it was nothing.
Nice.
But yeah, so ended up here 2007, and then you know, that's kind of how I found myself in Hayes County and Kyle area. So still back when there was not much around here. So
high school, I saw you played basketball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I played a lot of sports.
Captain of the team.
Yeah, played just about everything.
Yeah.
So from 4 to 18, it was just year-round, constant sports. That was my world.
Were you point guard?
I was point guard or shooting guard, depending on, you know, what the team dynamic
Because you're
looked
not
like.
quite 6'9".
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm 6'3", almost 6'3". I'll claim it anyway, 6'2.5". And so sometimes, you know, at private school, of course, there's not a whole lot of people to choose from. So when I say I was the captain of my team, it's like, okay, you know, captain of the school with 120 kids to choose from, you know.
Who's the guy that gets in the least amount of trouble?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so ton of fun playing basketball, football, soccer, played baseball for a number of years as well, but almost played in college, but kind of at that point I was already focused on ministry and stuff. But yeah, I do love a good pickup game of basketball. So
Nice. Yeah, in college you were at
Southwestern Assemblies of God University.
I'd never heard of this one until I looked it up yesterday.
Yeah, SAGU.
In, Temple? No.
It's actually Waxahachie.
Waxahachie.
So not too far up. It's about 30 minutes south of Dallas. But yeah, I went there in 2010, otherwise known as SWAGU. If you actually went to SAGU, it's really, there's no swag at all at SAGU. I can promise you that.
There's no swag.
There's no swag. We had to try to make ourselves feel better about it.
But it was a campus college, right? College experience. You had that.
Actually went to school. I was only there for a year and a half because I'd started playing in some bands. I'd really started doing worship music when I was 15, 16. I started writing songs. And even when I was younger, like 9, 10, 11 years old, I was already writing worship songs.
Oh, wow.
And so it was pretty evident from a younger age that I was somewhat gifted musically, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, and if I wanted to go to college for sports or music or whatever I wanted to do. I wasn't sure. But when I was 15, I wrote a song, and it's called Take Me to the Cross. The first song, I played it in our private school chapel. And then my pastor, Pastor Rob Koch from Shoreline up there in Austin, was in the chapel, and he heard it and said, "Hey, would you play it for our whole church?"
Oh, wow.
Which at the time, you know, a couple thousand people. I'm not really sure how many at least, but And so it's just me and a guitar on the stage in front of all these people at 15 years old playing a song I wrote. And
Not nervous at all?
No, not one bit.
I
Not
would
one
have been
bit.
sweating bullets.
And that was the first time I ever done anything like
Although,
that.
I mean, I sang in front of church, but it was only 50 people.
Yeah, sure. It's
people.
like, an auditorium full of people. It's pretty crazy. But that in that moment, that's kind of when I felt my call to ministry and doing more music and stuff like that. And so maybe it was because I wasn't nervous at all. That's why I felt that, kind of that call of like, hey, I could do this. Like, this is what I feel like I want to do, for the rest of my life is be on stage and in church.
Other than sports, was that the first time you performed in front of 1,000, 2,000 people?
In front of that many people? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I grew up doing I had a decent voice as a kid. And so the kids' Christmas plays.
Right. That's like stuff I was into.
Stuff like that, but much smaller scale. That was the first time I really got in front of a large crowd and did something like that. So, but yeah, I went to college and started a band, kind of a Christian band, and we would play at different youth camps, and we played on campus a couple times, and ended up getting hired at the church in San Antonio that we got contracted to do the youth camp for. So I was only at college for a year and a half.
Was that Revolution?
No, that was Cornerstone. So, have you ever heard of John Hagee before? I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's kind of like a world-renowned kind of televangelist, old school Pentecostal preacher. And so large church in San Antonio. And so I worked with their middle school ministry there.
Oh, cool.
Doing music for the middle school students. And I do eventually they had me do the kind of like middle school Bible study, Sunday school sort of deal. Yeah. And that was my first time ever really like preaching before to a group on a regular basis. So before that, it was all music. And it was kind of at that point.
That was about 2012?
Yeah.
2012?
2011, 2012, somewhere around there. Yeah. So I was only 19 when I got hired there, left after a year and a half of being in college, and was on tour with another band when I got the call that they wanted to bring me. And
so literally Chick-fil-A to church.
Exactly, man.
Love
exactly.
it.
Chick-fil-A, church, all the good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how I got back to this area and then been here for a while. But started with middle school ministry and then worked my way up, went to Revolution Church, did middle school and high school where I was actually youth pastor. And then I was the kind of like creative pastor for the whole church. So would sing on Sunday mornings and kind of plan all that with my worship pastor now that actually works for me at our church, Radical. So we've been working together for a long time. We went to college together. Oh, wow. We're in that band together. So it's cool. We've been together ever since day one of college, which has been really fun. So
that's cool.
Yeah, that's when I started to do more for adults and everything, but slowly worked my way up there.
So how did you meet your better half?
Oh gosh. So that was at a youth camp, which is always funny because I was one of the leaders and worship leaders for the youth camp, and she was not a student at the youth camp. I always have to, it's a caveat. She was a student. She was a leader, not a student leader. She was a leader at the youth camp.
We're not editing anything out.
Hey, we just got to make sure, clarify that for the people, right? And so her youth pastor, who she was serving with, comes up to me in the gym, and I'd been on this tour serving at this youth camp in North Texas for, 4 or 5 weeks at this point in the summer. It's like 800 to 1,000 kids every week that would come in and we'd be leading for and all that. And so this guy comes up to me and says, hey, is there a Mrs. Trevor? He didn't even know my last name or anything. Is there a Mrs. Trevor? I said, nope, definitely single, very, very single. And he said, well, we have an inquiring mind. And I was like, first off, who says it that way? That's a very odd way to like come up and say something. I'm like, a student? Or this is weird. I'm like, 22 at this point. And
are we on Maury Povich? What do we got?
Yeah, like exactly what's going on here? I said, yeah, we got an inquiring mind. And I was like, okay, like, who is this girl? And then his wife runs up real fast and brings a picture of her. And I was like, can I see what she looks like? I don't even know who this girl is. Because you know what I'm talking about. If you've been in church, especially for any period of time, you know that there's always people, especially if you're single, there's like the grandmas that will come up to you all the time and say, you got to date my granddaughter. And then you see a picture of the granddaughter and you're like, I don't think so. I don't think this is going to happen. I love you.
Does it look like we have the same personality?
I just don't know if we're going to mix, you know what I mean? And it always happens. And so anyway, she comes up and shows me a picture of my wife, Lindsay, who's, absolutely gorgeous. She's incredible and beautiful. And I was like, oh my goodness, introduce me to this woman immediately. And so they did. I went and met her. She was so nervous. She was hiding around a corner when he was doing it. You know, she didn't want him to do that at all.
And what year was this?
This is 2015. And so we met on July 23rd at the end of kind of my youth camps for that summer. And then I got hired at a church in Oklahoma. And it just worked out such a God thing where she was going to college in Oklahoma. And I ended up getting hired about 20 minutes away at a church from where she was going to school in Oklahoma. So we dated that whole school year, kind of from the beginning of the school year all the way. And then right before the school year ended, I proposed. And then we got married on the day that we met the year before. So July 23rd, we met. July 23rd, we got married the next year.
You just knew.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Sometimes you know.
It was just one of those immediate things that, you know, meeting at the youth camp, getting to hang out for just a couple of days. Her youth pastor, you know, same guy invited me back to stay at their house. He kicked his kids out of their rooms and let me stay at their house in North Texas. And I met her parents literally like a week later after I had first met her.
Oh, wow.
Met her parents, preached for their youth group and led worship for their youth group. I'm an extrovert, man. It does not bother me at all to just go meet people and put myself in situations like that. You know, where she's looking back on it, she's like, "That's super weird, like that you just did that." I was like, "I didn't care." Like,
she's used to it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's normal.
You go and travel and do that kind of stuff.
I'm the same way. I can walk into a room of people and just start talking to people.
Oh, for sure.
And my wife is like, "Do we have to go in that room?"
Yeah.
Like.
That's how
we
Lindsay
have to take separate cars to church because I'll talk to people when she's ready to go.
Hey, we got a reservation at the Mexican place. Like, we got to get out of here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's how we met, and we stayed up there in Oklahoma for 4.5 years, I guess. I was there, and we got married in 2016, and then we left and came back to this area, where she had never lived here before. She's originally from Fort Worth, but we ended up coming here to Kyle in 2019 to kind of get ready to plant the church and all that. So, yeah.
Very cool. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it, man, for sure.
When did you know? Because I know Pastor Sean has talked about how he knew at one point he wanted to plant a church. He just didn't know when or where.
Yeah.
And he was conflicted, you know, is this the right time? Where am I supposed to be? God, you know, guide me. And he just, you know, waited and waited and waited. And then we planted vertical. And so he kind of, I think there were a lot of things in motion at the time that facilitated that moment.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of time to think. He had a lot of time to think about it. We had a year almost to launch, to plan. So how did that happen for you?
It's kind of a crazy story. It's certainly a God story, and one that I love to tell, and one that's kind of central to who we are as a church. The name of our church is Radical. And in 2017, so I'd only been at my church in Oklahoma for a couple of years at this point, not even 2 years, I think. And I just got married a year before to Lindsay and starting this ministry journey together. And I had about 4 or 5 people in January of 2017 tell me, "Hey, you should plant a church one day. Like, if you ever started a church, we would help you. Like, we would want to be a part of that." And I was like, "Why? Why would you want me to do it? More than that, why would you agree to help?" God
qualifies those he calls, right?
Hey, exactly. Up to that point, I had been the music guy. I had been the creative guy. So I did photography, videography, marketing, communications, editing, and I would do the broadcast stuff for the church. I mean, I would speak, but it was always to middle school or high school, and I never really did anything aside from that. And so I'm just like, why? Like, why would you think of me? And so 4 or 5 people tell me this. And then my pastor brings me in for annual reviews. You know, it's the beginning of the year, doing the annual review. And the first 2 of my buddies that go in get absolutely destroyed. So they come back out and they just, both of them look dejected. They look so upset, you know? And it wasn't like that bad probably, but they just, you know, he had told them something.
It's a church performance review. It's not like, I've been through some corporate performance reviews. They're brutal.
Yeah. And they were, you know,
love.
Just a couple of things, hey, you probably need to work on, you know, but just like, oh man, it's kind of deflating, you know? So they come out looking like that. I'm like, oh no, this is not going to be good. You know, I'm next. And so I go in and he says, "Trevor, you're doing a great job." And I was like, oh Lord, okay. Woo! This is great. Okay. And he said, "You know, you have the heart of a pastor." So you have the heart of a pastor, just somebody that loves people, that cares for people legitimately. And I really do. And I think it's something God has given me for sure. And he said, I think, because of that, I really do think that one day I see you starting your own church or being a pastor of a church. And I said, that's crazy. You're like the sixth person to tell me that in the last month or two.
Wow.
He said, I'm the sixth person to tell you that. He said, have you prayed about this? I said, no, sir. He said,
in a short amount of time.
Super short amount of time. And I kept thinking that people were talking, that, you told this person. And they're like, no, what are you talking about? So I was already kind of getting this confirmation thing of, man, maybe this is something I should do. And so he said, get out of here, go pray about it. Leave, like right now, go. And I was like, okay, am I done here?
Take those two friends and work on them.
Exactly. And he said, yeah, get out of here, go pray. So I go, I know exactly, I could take you back to the spot I was at. This little gas station, Yukon, Oklahoma, 15 miles west of Oklahoma City, man. I can take you back.
Facebook where
That's right.
Pinpointed it on Google Maps.
That's right. That's it. I could take you right back there. And I just sat in my car and just prayed and said, all right, God, if I'm supposed to start a church, you got to give me something, you got to give me some kind of, you got to give me the name of the church, or you got to give me some kind of extra confirmation. Have you ever spitballed with God before?
Right.
That's what I was doing. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there and I'm praying. I'm like, God, give me the name of this church. I prayed for 30 minutes and I felt very spiritual about that. And, but I didn't get anything. I didn't have any answer to the name of the church, what it was going to be. And so I got a little frustrated. I'm like, all right, God, I feel like I should have something by now. I don't know why I felt so impatient about it. I said, you know what? Let's just forget the name of the church. Let me just start praying. Yeah. And so I just started praying a prayer almost exactly like this. God, make me a radical believer. Somebody that just goes after you with everything that I have. God, give me radical boldness to speak your name into the darkest of situations, darkest of family situations, to speak to addiction, to be gone in the name of Jesus. God, make me a radical worshiper. When I worship, people would follow me into the throne room of heaven, just and want to follow when I'm worshiping. Radical this, radical that. And I thought radical church sounds really cool. In one ear, out the other, though, real fast. And didn't think about it. It was a Friday. And so then, like any good, Pentecostal church, all right, we had a Sunday night prayer meeting without a G, Sunday night prayer meeting. That was on Sunday nights. And so Sunday comes around. And I'm worshiping. I got my hand in the air, and I'm just kind of, doing my thing. And this lady her name is Dee Outlaw, okay, which first off, an incredible name. Dee, she is just someone who just hears from God. It's incredible. I always describe her as, if you've been sinning throughout the week and you show up to church, don't come across Dee because she might know about it.
She's going to tell you.
God, she's looking at you like,
You need an extra 5 minutes at the altar today?
I know what you did this week. I'm like, how? God told me, like she's just that kind of person. And so she comes over to me, makes a beeline from across the room. You got to imagine a 60-year-old, 65-year-old Oklahoma woman, coming up just like, grabs my hand out of the air and starts saying radical preaching, radical boldness, radical worship, radical faith. Baby, I don't know what this word radical means. I never said it in my life, but your word is radical. And I was like, whoa.
That's powerful.
It's crazy.
How can you say no to that?
Well, I looked around.
Can't tell Dee if she's wrong.
Oh, yeah. I said, Dee, do you know what you've just done? And she was like, I don't know, but I'm going to keep praying, baby. Bye. And she just walks away. And she just leaves. She's gone. Going to pray for somebody else. And I look at my wife, Lindsay, and I'm like, I didn't tell her. I didn't tell anybody. Yeah. It was just a couple of days before. And so I said, hey, babe, I think we're going to plant a church, and it's going to be called Radical Church. And she said, like any good wife, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
And that was that. She
started putting holes in it.
Yeah. Maybe, should we though? And so that was 2017, kind of the beginning. I told my pastor the next day because he had just told me to go pray about it, And so I tell him the next day, I bring in Lindsay Monday morning, have a meeting with him, and he confirms it. He says, well, I told you to pray about it. Dee obviously heard something from the Lord. You can't deny it. And so, but I knew I wasn't ready. I said, please don't fire me. I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. I want to serve this church and serve you and your ministry and everything. And he said, well, I definitely know you're not ready. I was like, hey, hold on now, But he was right. I certainly had a lot of growing left to do. And I think there's something powerful about serving somebody else, serving somebody else's ministry, or even in business, like apprenticing under somebody else,
for sure.
And serving their vision for a while. As you learn and as you grow, you kind of catch who they are and catch their culture, and you learn more and you grow as you mature. And I'm so glad for the couple of years afterwards that we stayed from 2017 to 2019, because without it, I think if we would have just left immediately, I think it would have failed.
Right.
I know it would have failed for sure. But we waited for God's timing. And just like you said, Pastor Sean, you kind of have to wait, like when, is the right time to do this. And we ended up planting in the middle of COVID, which I would not recommend to anybody to start something in the middle of COVID. Not the best time.
Yeah, y'all were over at Atchley. Yep, and all the schools shut down and kicked us all out.
Yeah, exactly. All the schools shut down except for ours, apparently. Like,
that's right.
Which is a crazy story on its own.
That's right.
Our Principal Crowther, she called.
That's right. She went to bat for y'all.
She did. She called the district and said, "Hey, this is my school. I'm gonna do whatever I want."
Good.
And it's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. So we were very, very grateful for that.
We didn't get the same response from McCormick.
Yeah.
Each their own.
Oh, for sure. Well, it's
a big undertaking.
It's tough too because no one knew what was going on.
Right.
It was so new. COVID was just starting out when we were trying to build our launch team to start the church. And so it was definitely a great confirmation. I think that we came at the right time, that we were there at the right time, that, that even though COVID had already started and we haven't even launched the church yet, and I'm just trying to figure out what are we doing, having something like that happen, it's just like, all right, we're doing the right thing. So,
well, and y'all were not shut down, and a lot of other churches were, and people were looking for a place to go. Obviously, you can only watch church online for so long.
Yeah,
before you get disconnected from people.
It was tough. It was tough. Starting in, everything shut down in March 2020, right? And we'd only had one kind of interest party to kind of tell the community, hey, we're a new church that we're coming to town, and we want to, get people on the team and help us launch the church and all that stuff. But it's just crazy how God prepares you for all the different things that are coming in life, because I didn't know a whole lot about digital marketing, about videography and photography and, communications and all that kind of stuff before I started that job at Discovery in Oklahoma. That's what I learned over that 5 years. And then I moved back here, the world shuts down, and where does everything go? Online.
Digital. Yep.
So I now have all of these skills in video editing. I'm a worship leader, so I can sing. So me and my buddy Tim, who I'd been in that band with, and he was already on board as the worship pastor. It was just really me and him at this point. We set up kind of like this, with a couple of acoustic guitars, and put up some cameras, and we said, hey, let's film and let's just put out some content for people and kind of use that as a way to get people on the team. And so we did Facebook events and Zoom parties where we would just invite people to hang out with us on Zoom and, see if they wanted to be a part of a new church in Kyle, new church in the area. And so we built our team of 50 launch team members almost exclusively off of social media, which was pretty wild. So even to this day, I still have people asking me like, so how did you do that? I'm like, I have no idea.
God did it.
The playbook that we had for starting a new church was just thrown out the window. Right. They said, just do whatever, we know we told you to do this, but just do whatever you want and just whatever works for you, whatever you feel like God's telling you to do, you got to do something, if you're gonna succeed.
Everybody got creative.
Oh my gosh, you had
to be, or or people wouldn't go to church.
Exactly.
So you had to figure out how to bring church to them.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that has stuck around, which is probably good in some sense, bad in others maybe.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think people rely on the online stuff a whole lot now instead of meeting in person, which I think the in-person gathering is so important.
For sure.
But at the same time, man, for the first 8 months of the church, we were in masks from the time we got out of our cars until we got back in our cars. That's what the school district said. I was like, I'll do whatever. I don't even care.
Right.
So you'd put on your mask basically as you're getting out of your car, and just the connection is just so difficult. Like you remember what it felt like. It was so hard, and but we did what we had to do, and we wanted to keep people safe as best we could too. And nobody knew what was going on really at the time anyway, and so we're like, we're just happy to be here, right? We're just happy to be here. And then 8 months down the line, we got to have the Sunday where everybody took off the mask, and some people probably burned them, some people kept wearing them, some people kept wearing them, some people didn't. But man, I was just so happy to be able to have that face-to-face connection with people again. So
that's good.
That's kind of the story of how we started anyway. Yeah.
And then from Atchley, you grew to Wallace?
Yeah. So we were in Atchley Elementary in Plum Creek there for the first year, I believe it was. And then went to Wallace Middle School because Atchley was under construction. Ended up being a great thing for us, getting out of the middle of a neighborhood, being kind of more on a main road, a little bit more visible. So we went to Wallace Middle School, and Ended up growing there, but then they were going to have construction. And so we didn't know when that was going to happen. But what I did know is that, man, I think we need to get out of here. You know, I'd had some people counsel me and say, hey, as fast as you can get to somewhat of a permanent location, it just helps people in the community know, hey, we're here.
Right.
We're not leaving. You know, even Mayor Mitchell had asked me at one point, he's like, hey, like, are you like sticking around, or like, you know, because I've had a whole bunch of other church planners come in and say they want to do big things for the city and all this kind of stuff. But like, are you actually?
And they're all looking for a spot.
Right. And but are you actually staying? I thought it was a weird question at first, but I understand it now.
Right. A lot of them didn't or don't.
Oh, for sure.
A lot of church startups,
and it's tough. Most church plants fail. Most. It's like 80%, I think.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Same with small businesses too.
Exactly. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. You know, as much as church is not a business, there's a lot of stuff.
Well, it's
ran like that. You have employees.
I've always said
payroll.
The church is a business, but they're in the business of saving people.
Yeah.
You know,
business of people.
It costs money to reach people.
Yep.
And so you have to pay people to do it in a church. A lot of the mega churches get a lot of flack because of the money that they make, but they give a lot of that back. And I don't know their finances. I'm not sticking up for them. But
usually
if you're bringing in millions of dollars in revenue for your church, you're giving out millions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's going
almost every
back
time
to the community. It's going overseas. It's going to missions and
absolutely
and middle schools, elementary schools. It's going to food pantries. It's going places.
Yes.
So people don't realize that it is a business in a way, but it's a nonprofit business.
Right. Exactly.
People have to get paid.
Yeah.
They have bills to pay too.
Oh, for sure. When you want to make sure you take care of people.
Right.
You know, if you're going to work full time.
Right.
You know, you got to have a living wage.
A lot of pastors have two jobs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I worked
bivocational, what they call it, bivocational.
Absolutely.
Pastor.
I worked in marketing for the first year. I didn't take a paycheck for the whole first year. Just worked for a lady that I'd done some marketing with in Oklahoma. She was kind of starting an agency, and so it was me and her pretty much that started it up. And now she has
Miracle Marketing.
No, actually different. No, it's a different one.
Okay.
This is years ago. It's 2019 and 2020 and all that. And now she has a full blown agency with a studio and a ton of employees and everything. I just remember it was just me and her, you know, just figuring it out. And but that's kind of what led me to do all the marketing stuff I do today and everything. But
very cool.
So yeah, we went to Wallace. That was kind of the transition there. Went to Wallace Middle School and found that place, 1151 Bunton Creek, which is just a little warehouse.
That's right.
And
I've been there.
We turned it into a church, man. Yeah, you've been, which is really cool. I'm so glad you got to come check it out.
Yeah, it was fun. Y'all were busting up the seams.
Yeah,
already.
It's pretty wild. We're doing 3 services now and knocking on 4. Maybe we'll see if my voice can handle that. So
like a later in the night, like a night
I don't know. I think we might do maybe a 6 p.m. I know some people say Saturday service, but that's just so tough on staff and volunteers to have to do Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. Like, I would like a weekend, you know?
And y'all only been there 8 months?
Oh, gosh, yeah. We launched on Easter, which also I would not recommend.
Not even a year.
We launched,
welcome the entire community to our new church on Easter.
To the brand new facility that the day before we were still cleaning.
Wow.
We had 40 people the day before. We had just done a egg hunt in the community for Plum Creek. We did this little egg hunt every year for them. And then right after that, we were like, hey, let's go straight to the building and let's clean and let's get out, literally getting paint chips off the glass. I mean, I'm telling you, like, it was not ready at all. But yet the next day, everything went perfect, which is shocking once again. Starting a church in COVID, you think it's going to be crazy. It's not going to work out. It went well. Launching your new building on Easter, they would never recommend you do that, like the church people. It went really well. The next week was terrible, but the first week was actually great. So that worked out. But yeah.
So looking for a new place now already?
Looking for some land. Looking for land. Looking for a building, land, whatever we can find, just somewhere to call home. You know, because we're leasing right now, and ain't nothing wrong with that. But when you're kind of busting at the seams, 3, almost 4 services, we're already kind of like, hey, I know we just did this capital campaign and I know we just did this building project, but we're growing and God's doing great stuff. So we're already looking for something else. I don't know where that's going to be. I have no clue right now, but just asking people to pray. And
that's a good segue into the post you made last week about Hays County growing and needing more churches.
Yes.
And we don't have enough.
It's incredible.
You did a lot of research on that.
I did.
Tell me about that.
A lot more than I probably should have.
Let's talk about that so the people who are in Hays County watching this can know what's going on in Hays County.
Yeah. So the average church, I guess demographic, the average per capita is way higher in other counties than it is in Hays County. Travis County as well. And of course it makes sense. Austin area is not really a churchy area, you know, it's just not. And historically it's been that way for especially the last 10 to 15 years. And we've seen a lot of people moving in from Cali, which a lot of them are not very religious in a sense, and that's fine, but you know, that's a whole other conversation. But especially moving into Hays County, a lot of people moving down from Austin this way. And so we only have about maybe 12 to 15 churches for 60,000 people, which
that blew my mind when I read that.
It's nuts, right?
I had no idea that we were that lacking.
Yeah. I think it was like the average in Texas was about 10 per 10,000 people or something, and we were like 2 for every 10,000. It was just shockingly low.
No wonder
249th out of 252 in counties in Texas.
Wow.
As far as how many churches we have per capita. So
why do you think we're just not able to build them quick enough?
I think honestly, this area was, I mean, there wasn't anything here just 10 years ago. 15 years ago. There really wasn't. So it makes sense in one, just the population growth is just far outpacing the church growth. And it's tough in one sense because this whole area is getting developed so much, which I love. We need that. We need more things to do. And the whole kind of mantra of city council and different people in Kyle and Buta's experiencing the same thing, San Marcos as well, is we want people to be able to live, work, and play right here. You know, we don't want you to have to go up to Austin. We don't want you to have to go down to New Braunfels. We want you to be able to stay here and live your life here. And but part of living life for a whole lot of people is church and their religion. And so there's not a whole lot of options for people right now. So even as a new church planter, I welcome anybody else that is feeling a call to come to Kyle or wanting to come. And there's a few guys that are about to get started, about to plant new churches. And I'm helping them out as best I can anyway and trying to encourage them because we certainly need more life-giving churches in the area to keep up with just the amount of people that are coming in.
And the amount of kids.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You have no idea how many people we have that come in. I haven't been to church in 15 years, but I used to go to church when I was a kid. I went to Sunday school, and I remember it just instilled. And I have kids, and I just want them to have good values. Like they don't even care about the religion part of it. Like they just want good values for their kids sometimes.
And God's like, I'll save you later.
Exactly.
Just bring your kids to the church.
Seriously, that is exactly how I feel about it. Like, you know what? We'll work on you. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like one day you'll get there. And a lot of times they're kind of Jesus curious is what I would call them. They're just curious about it. They're not really sold, but they just want a community of people that they can rally around with their kids. And, they say it takes a village to raise kids. And
it definitely does.
And, what better place than to, go to a church of great people that love God and love each other and want to support each other and lift each other up. That's what the church is supposed to be about.
You want a good quality group of villagers.
Exactly.
Raising your kids.
Absolutely.
Or, the people down the street are going to do it.
Straight up. Absolutely. So, there's a lot of need in this area, but I also understand, a lot of Hays County is not religious. And so it makes it a little bit more challenging being a church planter, but kind of being from here in a sense, in this area, I really understand, I think, the people here and what matters a lot to them. And it matters a lot to me is the idea of community and caring about our community. And so we've kind of built our church off of that idea of, one of our core values is community focused. And what that looks like practically, of course, is caring about our church community, but caring about the community at large. So, I go to city council meetings and we have city council members that come to the church and, it was great. I got to play on a softball team with the chief of police and the mayor and just like getting to hang out with those guys, like what do you guys need? And I just want to be available. One of my parents' great friends is the fire marshal. It's like, hey, how can we work together? I don't want to be against what you guys are doing. And sometimes the church, we have our own things that we do, but a lot of times there's other nonprofits and there's groups that are doing things way better than I could.
Right.
Way better than the church could.
Yeah.
And so how can we partner with Hayes Hope to Go, for example?
The first thing that came to mind was Hayes Hope to Go.
Great organization.
Hayes
I know.
County Food Bank.
Yes. Yeah. How can we partner with you guys and do something? Y'all are already doing really well. You already know families that are in need that we can help. We have the volunteers. You have the know-how. Let's work together, know. Doing the Plum Creek egg hunt. Could we do our own thing? Absolutely we could. But it's fun to work together with the neighborhood and to do something for them and different things like that. So we had a Love Kyle week this last year, which is the first time we did it in the summer. We're just for a whole day, really. We want it to be a Love Kyle week, but it was a day this year. Eventually, I have a vision for it to be a whole week of serving the city. But for a whole day, we just went out into the community and did all kinds of different service projects. Got in touch with the people from the city. Is like, hey, what can we do? Parks and Rec department said, hey, we got some stuff for you guys to do. And so Night to Shine, we partnered with the city of Kyle as well. And
it's another thing I want to talk about.
It's so cool getting to put on this amazing prom night experience for those with developmental disabilities, and worked with the city of Kyle, and we kind of partnered together on putting that on. So that was a huge success as well.
Let's segue into that. How'd you get involved with Tim Tebow's Night to Shine?
So my brother's autistic, and it's just something that's always kind of been on my heart growing up. I'm the younger brother. He's 33, I'm 31. But when you have, a sibling that's autistic like that, it's tough because I was the younger brother, but at times I had to be the older brother.
Right.
And I was a sibling, but at times I had to be an only child, or I was an only child is what it felt like sometimes. And so I kind of had a mix of all four of the different expressions of being a kid, being the oldest, youngest sibling, only child. And I kind of had to navigate what that looked like, and trying to understand, even as a kid, who my brother is and how he thinks and how he operates and how I can support him, but also give him the space and let him be the older brother sometimes, back off, just, I don't have to be a know-it-all as a kid, even though I felt like I was smart and, good at school and sports and stuff, let your brother win every once in a while. You know what I mean? And it's tough being the younger brother and having to have that mentality. Usually it's kind of the older brother thing, right?
Growing up the whole time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I learned so much from having Thad as my brother, and he's incredible. He's such a great dude. And, he's so skilled and talented at different random things, which is so much fun, getting to go bowling with him or play golf, or he loves video games and stuff like that. And so I'm into all those things too, which I think is cool. But, so all that to say, that's been kind of a passion of mine ever since I was young. I knew one day when I'm in ministry, from 15 on, I kind of already knew that I want to have some kind of impact in the special needs community. Whatever that looks like, I didn't know. But of course, Tim Tebow Foundation does a great job with Night to Shine. And that's just one way to get involved. Of course, there's so many different ways, but doing Night to Shine, I knew when we started the church, that was one thing I wanted to do. So
now, is it like a per county thing or per city? Do they have one in each location?
They try to have it, sporadically throughout the nation. Really, just if there's not a Night to Shine there and you apply to be a host church, then they'll let you do it. And sometimes they have churches that work together and they kind of put it on together or whatever it might be. But it just depends on, who's in the area.
Christina over at Beauty's Brightside.
Yes, exactly.
Big fan of her.
Oh yeah, she's amazing, incredible, super great person, and has done a whole lot for that community in Hayes County especially. So, getting to do Night to Shine is a ton of fun. It's coming up in February, so we're already
very cool
planning that and all that fun stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah, man.
Let's see. What do we got here next?
We have Black Rifle Coffee.
Here we go. So, a little bit about, we can actually back up a little bit to the reason people don't go to church, or they quit going to church. Now they want to go to church again.
Yeah.
How do you see a shift in culture of people obviously coming to your church and busting at the seams, and Vertical's busting at the seams?
Yeah.
But are people I don't know how to make this sound not fatalistic, but with the state of the world right now, do you see a cultural shift in more people coming to God, more people believing in a creator? Because the end might be near. We don't know.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. The end is coming.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We don't know when, but it sure seems like it's ramping up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
What chapter of Revelation are we on today?
Yeah, exactly. At what point does AI take over?
Right.
And,
And that's it. And AI's like, we don't need you anymore.
Exactly. Delete. So, it is interesting. I think I see a lot of people that there used to be a trend in the early thousands, the 90s, early thousands, even into the 2010s, of this kind of attractional church model or seeker-friendly church model, if you will, right? Of put on the best performance, put on the biggest show, get the lights, the fog, and all that kind of stuff that we all thought, well, it's cool, and let's make church cool.
Yeah. I like cool church.
And I do too. I'm all about it.
Overboard for sure. You can,
But what I have noticed anyway is I just don't think, especially nowadays with younger millennials and Gen Z, they do not care about that stuff. In fact, they almost are pushing against it a little bit, which is kind of interesting. I love all that stuff. I love the production of it and all that good stuff, but they kind of have the same mentality. A lot of younger students and college students now, they say, well, why are we using our money on lights when we could be giving it to organizations that are doing good in the community or helping people around the world? Millennials was we were kind of the first, I'm a millennial. And so we were the first generation to really be extra like cause based. Everything we did was based off of causes. And social media had a lot to do with that.
Right. Feelings.
Yes.
Virtue signaling too.
Oh, exactly. A little bit of it is kind of like, okay, but that's a lot of what the millennial generation cares about, and even more so Gen Z. And so we were just talking with one of the college campus missionaries that goes to our church, and she works at Chi Alpha at Texas State, which is the campus group there. And she said, I've never seen more students, more 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds that are looking to read the Bible, like just dig in. Like they don't care about if the music is perfect. They don't care about even if the preaching is amazing. They just want to have community and they want to have the Bible. And it is very interesting because it seems in one sense that Gen Z is the most post-Christian that we've ever seen. But I actually think it's because of the kind of this secular, almost cool, attractional, seeker-friendly kind of model that they're pushing back on. They're like, hey, we don't want anything to do with that. We want something that's real, We want something that's authentic. Like, I want to know that you actually care about me.
That's interesting. It's almost like going back a generation to my parents.
Yes.
My
absolutely
70-something-year-old parents, and they're traditional church.
Yeah.
Presbyterian church.
And they're totally cool with it. And of course, I have nothing wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with the hoopla and the fun and all that stuff. I think church should be fun.
Right.
I think if you're not having fun in church, then you're doing it wrong. A lot of people think Jesus was just this, stoic kind of a person. But when you really read between the lines of some of the stuff that he said, he was sarcastic. He was funny. Yep. And he took some jabs at some people sometimes. And you gotta imagine you're walking around with these 12 dudes who are 18 to 25-year-olds, by the way.
Right.
That's who they were.
Yeah.
Jesus is in his early 30s. Okay, he's about my age.
Yep.
You better believe they were joking around and having some fun and having a good time. So I believe God has a sense of humor.
Like, throw that net out there again. Watch this.
Exactly. And so he, I kind of have this idea that church should be fun. We should also be reverent in church too, though, and understand that we are worshiping like this holy God that is far beyond our understanding. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And so putting him in his rightful place as number one and as king over our lives, but at the same time, understanding that, I just know a bunch of people that grew up like in Catholic church, and they'll come to Radical.
Right.
Hayes County has a huge Catholic population, and so they'll come to Radical and be like, I've never been to a Christian church before. It's my first time in 30 years. I grew up Catholic.
Right.
And then the first electric guitar hits, and then we're just jumping around having a good time, people worshiping, like raising our hands and all that stuff. They're like, oh my goodness, what is happening right now? But they can feel that the people at the door that greet them actually care, The band, like we're not just jumping around or playing this music to try to like entertain you, but we actually believe in what we're doing here. And the community aspect of it, we try our best to do well. And then also the preaching, right? I just want to get into God's word. I just want to, this is how it is. I'll make it relevant. I'll make it funny. I'll crack some jokes. We'll have a good time. My wife will make fun of me for him, but it is what it is.
But it won't be boring.
Yeah, it won't be boring.
Yeah. Like you'll remember the message because you won't be bored.
Yeah. And I want to make it as fun as possible. I love stand-up comedy, actually. That's one of my, too. Oh yeah. Who's your people?
It's kind of, it really just depends on what rated R, rated PG.
Yeah, exactly. Or not. What am I going for?
Like I'm a big fan of Kill Tony.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's not the most appropriate.
Sure.
But it's hilarious.
Yeah.
For female comics, Whitney Cummings is hilarious.
Okay. Yep.
Theo Vaughn is one of my favorites, and I really enjoy his podcast.
And see, that's what I'm talking about. Like the other day, I saw a clip of him, and there's another buddy of his that's just like breaking down crying, and he said, "Man, like let's just sit here for a little bit. We don't gotta talk. I'll just sit here and chill with you for a second."
He is such a genuine person.
Yes,
but he's funny.
He's hilarious.
And he's not, sometimes it's not, he's not even trying to be funny. It's just who he is. And he's just sitting there talking, and something funny will come out of his mouth, and people are laughing, and he's still talking.
Oh, yeah.
But he's just.
But that's that. If I had to almost take it back to what we were just talking about earlier, that's the kind of person, and that's the kind of mentality I feel like that the Gen Z generation is looking for in a pastor and in leadership. Somebody's just real. Like, not this unapproachable, have 3 bodyguards around you, or like you can't ever get in touch with them kind of a guy, approachable, that is standing by the doors, like talking to people after service, hanging out and giving high fives. And so that's the kind of person I try to be. I just try to be real. I don't want to try to make myself, I'm not some important person, and I never want to get a big head about anything. So
I think that helps bring in the younger crowd to church.
Absolutely.
I feel like an old man now. I'm 51,
the authenticity.
And I'm like, how are we going to get these young kids into church? Because our world's going crazy, these kids.
It is crazy. But, we're in an election year right now. We just got into it, obviously, at the beginning of the year. And so, things are about to probably get crazy again. Yeah. But having that breath of fresh air on a Sunday morning hopefully will give people a little bit of break from all the news and all the craziness that we see in the world. So that's what I'm trying to do anyway.
How's your youth program over there?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. We have about 50 students that come every week. And
love it.
Rachel's our youth pastor. She does a phenomenal job with those students. And our first youth camp was just a few years ago, and we had 11 students, and none of them believed in God.
Wow.
It's crazy bringing...
The parents made them go?
Oh, yeah. It's like bringing these kids, and none of them are really, they don't believe in what we believe hardly at all. And then by the end of it, seeing every single one of them give their hearts to Jesus. And,
wow.
And some of them are even called into ministry, which is amazing. And they've kind of been consistent even over the last few years. And so having a place now, having our own building and our own space is great for them because they have a ton of fun. They
made a difference in our vertical too.
Pizza parties and s'mores and getting to invite their friends and
game room for games.
Oh, come on. Yeah. It's great stuff. So they have a lot of fun Wednesday nights, and I try to go every once in a while because at heart, I feel like I'm still a youth leader. That's how I feel anyway. Yeah. So try to be a part of it as much as I can.
That's good. I think that probably is obviously a benefit.
Yeah.
I can see it happening at, the same at our church too. Sean being a former youth pastor. And he has a heart for youth ministry and stuff.
It's important. I mean, they're not the next generation is what I would say. A lot of times we call our, stuff next gen, which is fine.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. But they're not the next generation. They're the now generation is something I've heard. And I love that phrase because, if you wait until they're older to try to reach them, it's like, man, the world, I say this all the time, but we did a series called Culture Clash, talking about culture. And the main line I said every Sunday was, if you do not get a biblical perspective on these issues, Culture will quickly give you its perspective. Culture is going to tell you what it wants you to believe. You know, the school system, the people that you're around for 8 hours a day, these students, middle school and high school, you think that they're not being taught things, whether or not it's being explicitly said, it's implicitly implied a lot of times. And they're learning things from their friends, they're learning things from the places that they go to, the things they see on social media, and the things they see in movies and music and all this stuff. And the church a lot of times takes a back seat on all these issues. And I'm like, man, let's get out ahead of some of this stuff, especially as parents. Like as parents of kids, what is our job? The Bible clearly says our job is to train up a kid in the way they should go. And to teach them these things. And so I believe that extends to the church as well. And so having a good youth program is so important to me because they're asking questions. They're looking for truth. And they can take the world's version of that, or they can take God's version of that. And I certainly want to make sure that we're feeding our students truth in a healthy way and in an appropriate way where they can ask questions and have good conversations and be in a safe place with other like-minded people, you know, because a lot of times the world it's a tough place for a middle school student right now, a high school student right now.
I can't imagine. I mean, my generation was the last one, Gen X, to grow up without cell phone. I mean, we didn't have them in high school. I didn't get one until I was probably 21. And that was for nefarious reasons. I don't even know if it was in my name, actually, but it's a whole different world when you've got all your bullies right here. You know, and you can't punch them, or you can say something back, and people fight in comment sections all the time. And then they turn into adults that do it and fight in comment sections all the time. Which is why I want to do these podcasts, because I want to get people out of social media and talking again. We don't have people, and if we can make an example of it, maybe kids can do it too.
The art of
teenagers can get in there and start talking.
The art of conversation is lost on this generation.
It's 140 characters or less.
I mean, texting, that's all they do now. They don't even leave voicemails. I don't even leave voicemails anymore. Do you leave voicemails?
Sometimes, mostly no. If I get to a voicemail, I'll either text them, hey, call me when you get a chance. Or, but my clients rarely leave voicemails either.
It's crazy.
They'll just text me.
Just text you.
You have a question about something.
Which is fine. But at the same time, being able, I think the art that is lost on this generation is being able to have a conversation with somebody that you disagree with. It's so tough. People, 2020 made that even worse, I feel like. Way worse. And it was already going that way. In 2016, I think, Trump gets elected and there's just a whole lot of polarizing stuff going on there. The left and the right, if you will, in politics is becoming farther and farther apart. And even Christians and non-Christians and other religions, I think, are growing in a sense kind of farther apart.
Even some Christians are
exactly. And it's even within the Christian faith and even in churches, Like there's so many different arguments and stuff that pop up. And if we can't even be united, how can we expect the rest of the world to be united on stuff? It's impossible. We can't even have a conversation about this stuff and disagree respectfully. Ain't no way we can expect a 17-year-old student, to have a legit conversation with somebody else and respectfully disagree on these things because they're not taught how to do it. And so,
well, they don't have to. Is the thing, and they don't want to because it's uncomfortable. When you have a conversation with somebody you disagree with, you get defensive because you want to be right. We even as adults have that tendency to stick to our guns, and I want to be right. I don't want to be wrong. And then you find out you're wrong. Sometimes you have to admit you're wrong. But they don't want to do that, and they don't have to because they're sheltered and they're in a safe place, and they can just go sit in their room and watch TV and play games on their phone. Well,
and also echo chambers are so huge now because of algorithms. I mean, being honest, you get on your phone, and I understand how all this marketing stuff works because I'm in it. I'm in that world, And so we get this, how the things that the way that the timelines even work now is the things that you have shown interest in, it just shows you more of. The people that you agree with, it just shows you more of them. And eventually the dissenting opinions and the dissenting views, you don't even see it anymore.
They go away.
It's
you
gone.
have to go looking for them. So you think you're right all the time.
You have to.
And all your friends are too.
You have to. Even when COVID was happening and all the 2020 stuff and George Floyd and the election and all this, I made it a point, which is kind of crazy, but I made it a point to go and seek out stuff that I disagree with and not necessarily like it on social media,
Right.
but just see it enough to where it would kind of balance out my feed. Yeah, it would balance out my feed a little bit more.
Well, that too,
even.
yeah.
Like I would start to see even on TikTok, you know, all the things that I agree with. And I'm like, I think in some ways that makes sense, but I don't just want to see stuff I agree with, even if it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I want to see how other people are thinking about stuff because those are people that God loves that I'm trying to reach, you know, as a pastor too. I want to know how you think. Like I want to know how your brain works. I want to know how you're thinking about the situation because I'm not called to one political party as a pastor.
Exactly.
Right? I'm called to reach everybody. And that's tough, especially when you have your own personal convictions about things that are different than a lot of people, you know? And so how can you have personal convictions on political issues, biblical issues, which is what most of them are? They're not political, they're biblical.
Right.
They're moral issues, right?
I'll go down to morality.
Oh, yeah. And how can you disagree with people on these things in love, but also saying it with truth and with grace and with compassion?
It's like you're teeing up my next questions here.
Yeah, go ahead,
Which was communication and conversations, and how do we have conversations with people nowadays that we don't agree with, and in a productive manner, I guess is what I should say. I mean, I have some friends still that, you know, we believe differently politically, ideologically, or spiritually on things, and we just don't talk about it anymore, really.
Yeah.
Like, but they're still my friends. But it kind of got to the point where if we talk about it, we're just going to argue about it because we don't agree. And it's okay that we don't agree, and I guess we don't have to talk about that stuff because I'm probably not going to change their mind, and they're not going to change mine.
Right.
So how do we go about having these kind of conversations where we don't lose our friends?
Yeah.
You know, because there are friends that I have that don't believe in God.
Yeah.
And I love them. And I don't want them to not be in heaven with me, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But I don't think you know, they know my testimony. They know my life. They know my heart. They know my beliefs. So me having that conversation with them over and over again is not going to change.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I doubt it's going to change anything. So how do we have those kind of conversations, or do we?
Yeah.
You know, do we just let things be the way they are and let your friend who may come to God at some point come to God or not? And,
right.
You know, that's their problem. Let them deal with it. We'll just stay friends and not stir the pot kind of thing. How do we go about having those kind of hard conversations?
Yeah, I think it's different in two different ways for me, being an on-stage communicator versus just talking with somebody as a friend. Those are two completely different things, right? On stage, I have the mic and I'm the only one talking, right? Like it's not, I try to make it feel like a conversation. Like I'm trying to answer the questions that you're already asking. Right. You know, that's kind of an important thing.
But you're in teacher mode.
Right.
Or preacher mode.
And, but having those conversations just kind of one-on-one with people that you might disagree with. Sometimes I think the best option is to just not talk about some of these certain things. If you know it's going to cause problems, that might be the best option. But there's other times too where I feel like maybe you're like, okay, well, I'll never change their mind. They're never going to change my mind. I think that's another thing that is lost in one sense on people is at least being open to having conversations and being open to being wrong, you know, even if there's some like deep-seated convictions that we have that I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not going to change my mind, you know?
Right.
But at least being open to hearing why you think the way that you think on this. And maybe if you've gotten to this point where we know we're just going to disagree on it, that's fine. But if it is something, this is my deal with at least faith anyway. There's some conversations that are a little bit more trivial, some political things like, you know, if you disagree on taxes and, you know, billionaires or whatever, you know, I don't know.
Right.
You disagree on school choice or whatever, the, you know, bills that are coming through Texas or the United States, whatever it might be. You might disagree on some of those things, but faith is a little bit different in a sense. I think it was Penn and Teller, is Penn, the bigger dude, right? I think that's him, yeah. And he said something that was really profound. He said, you know, I think Christians, I'm going to summarize what he said. I'm probably going to butcher it. But he said, if Christians basically really believe what we believe, then we would be telling people about it.
Right.
if you really believe that people are dying and going to hell, right? Which is like kind of in the sense, we don't know what that looks like, right? But it's a separation from God and separation from the people that we love, right? If we believe that there's this afterlife and that Jesus is the only way, then we would be telling people about it. And he said the most hateful thing that you can do is not tell somebody about that, you know?
Right.
But how do you do that in a way that if, you know, you don't want to come across as this person that's just, you know, beating them across the head with a Bible.
And you know they've been told before.
Exactly.
You know,
so how do you do that? I think partially it's just being open to have those conversations when it's possible, praying and asking God to, you know, hey, give me an opportunity, you know, give me an in. And then just living your life. I think a lot of times, you know, let your light shine, just live your life. They see how you live your life and hopefully that will make an impact on them. But at the same time, being bold sometimes and just saying, hey, you know, like, I want to talk to you about this. Like, this is something that's really important. And I know that's tough sometimes, especially this generation that we live in now. People don't really want to be pushed. They don't want your faith to be pushed on them, right? They don't want that. But at the same time, man, if we really believe what we believe, Jesus said, go out and make disciples.
Time is running out.
Go tell people, you know?
Yeah.
And so finding that balance is probably really tough for people, but knowing the relationship you have with the person, of course, and, you know, bringing it up at the Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner table might not be the best time, you know, I don't know, but like, but finding those times where, you know, maybe they're going through something in their life and just saying, hey, how can I pray for you? You know, maybe they don't believe in that and you know, they don't, but, just living out your faith in front of them sometimes I feel like might be helpful, but
yeah, I like that. It's like that Dwight Moody quote that out of 100 men, 99 will read the Christian and 1 will read the Bible.
Yeah, that's good. Absolutely. Well, and then even having those conversations from the stage on things that we disagree with. Like I said, we just went through Culture Clash where we talked about a whole bunch of different things. And a lot of those conversations, people would call them political, but I call them biblical and I call them moral. Because before they were ever a political issue, those things were certainly biblical and moral before that. And so it was tough. I thought, honestly, especially being in the area that we're in, I thought I was going to get a whole bunch of flack for saying some of the stuff that I did. But, you know, we're talking about abortion. We're talking about alcohol and LGBTQ. We're talking about sexual sin, like heterosexual sin. You know, we talked about that first. And I think that's so important to address all these different topics of questions that people are already asking.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to do it. It's like, you guys are talking about this stuff all the time. I get these questions constantly. Let's just see what the Bible has to say about it. And it was so helpful to be able to have that conversation and it feel like a conversation with people where I'm like, hey, these are the questions that I know that you're asking, because sometimes I'm even asking them, and let me answer them with what the Bible says, but not with saying, hey, this is black and white, this is wrong, this is right, this is what you should do, and if you don't do it, then you're sinning, you know? But coming across from a place of love, from a place of understanding of, hey, I get why you think the way you think. That makes sense. Like, I can understand like the logic on how you got there.
And I'm a very
this is what the Bible
person,
says.
so I can understand it too.
Let's talk about
there's
it.
something
You know,
about the logic of not believing in a creator.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Oh yeah, me either.
Like this didn't happen by accident.
Me either.
So
there's no. In my mind, it's weird because there's no way I could never not be a believer. I've seen too many things. That's kind of how I say it anyway. I've just seen too much, you know, even just the radical story, just that's one story of so many things I've seen in my life that point to a creator and a personal, you know, God that loves me, you know, and it speaks to me on a personal level. And so, but for some other people, they don't have that kind of experience, you know, and they don't have that family upbringing. And so it's like, how do I communicate to you and then do the best that I can, but ultimately like parents with their kids that don't believe, that's a tough one. You know, like, I have a lot of parents in the church, their kids are 18, 19, 20, 21, they go off to college and they're like, hey, I don't really believe this anymore. They're like, what do I do?
Right.
Same thing I just kind of said earlier, have those conversations where you can, but then there is an element of just pray for them and then believe that God's going to do his thing, you know, because at the end of the day, I don't save anybody, man.
Right. Exactly.
You don't save anybody. We might say the right thing. We might say the wrong thing. But it's God that does it.
God's going to snatch them. Gotcha.
It's God that does it.
This is how it is.
Jesus told his disciples, when you go before the councils and before all these people, don't worry about what you're going to say before you get there.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Like the Holy Spirit will give you the right words to say at the right time when you get there. So many times I think parents, when people are just trying to figure out, okay, what's the exact formula? What do I need to say to get them to believe?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah,
and you don't know either.
Words, you don't know.
And you might not know until you get there. You won't even remember what you said.
It's almost
after.
like they haven't had their Jesus moment in their life yet. And for kids, I can understand it because I was 17 when I first realized and understood what it meant.
Yeah.
That Jesus died for me. And it was at a youth retreat on a weekend up in Sherman, Texas, Austin College.
Come on now.
Where my dad went to college, ironically. But I was 17, and I got home from that. I don't think I've ever told really anybody this, but I got home from that youth retreat, and I took a shower, and I was in the shower, and I just started crying. And it was a difficult time in my life. My whole kind of life was messed up a little bit here and there. I had a great family, My parents were wonderful. It wasn't anything to do with them. But I was in the shower, and it hit me. It's like he really died for me. This person came.
Yeah.
God came as this person, and he died for me. He sacrificed. He could have gotten out of it. He could have gotten rid of everybody in one swoop and just walked right out of there. But he didn't. And so I can understand how kids haven't had that moment yet. And so maybe they haven't had their Jesus moment yet where they really understand. But they might believe in something. Like you can believe that there's a God or a creator of the universe and still not know Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, exactly.
And that's what makes the difference to me. It made the difference to me. And that's, I think, is what's going to make the difference in people looking for something.
Absolutely.
He's right here. It's Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Just giving that hope to people, there's a God that loves you, that cares for you personally, knows every hair on your head, knows your inmost desires, knows all your failures, your mistakes, and yet still died for you. While you were still sinners. Like that's what it says. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us.
Right.
In the middle of my junk. In the middle of my addiction.
I wrote that on my board. Romans 5:8 when I was watching your sermon the other day on self-forgiveness.
Oh, wow.
That's what it was.
Yeah, that was...
I saw it live.
It's a tough one.
That was the service I was there for. Your
that's cool.
Third
yeah,
birthday.
Yeah. Yep.
So I saw it live. And then I watched it again online. I was like, this is a whole different message. Like, maybe I wasn't... I was probably in the moment, just enjoying being there and just checking everything out. I was sitting in the back because I like to sit in the back and just watch and kind of take everything in. So I got a different feeling when I watched it online again.
Yeah.
And it was because it was on self-forgiveness, and that's something I've really been struggling with lately is, if people have forgiven me, and I talked to a couple of guys at church about this a couple of weeks ago, that I've have a hard time forgiving myself.
I think the hardest person to forgive is you. Yeah. That's how I started that sermon, if I remember right. Who's the hardest person to forgive? It's not the people that hurt you. Yeah. It's not God. It's not your parents or your friends or anybody else. The hardest person to forgive usually is you. So
we know all of our mistakes.
Oh, yeah. And on a deeper level than anybody else sometimes,
Because we know why we made those mistakes.
Yeah. And so finding that forgiveness for yourself is so important, which I know that's something that's really powerful for you in your story, and finding that on that journey of self-forgiveness and all that kind of stuff. So even for me, it's the same deal, kind of had that time where I ran away from God a little bit and ran away from my calling. And I feel like he kind of slapped me upside the head and said, what are you doing? Come back. Like, this is not who you are. This is not your...
Well, what were you doing? Because that was going to be my other question. You keep teeing me up my questions for me. So what was the time in your life where you were struggling with self-forgiveness?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So had a girlfriend I dated on and off for 5 years, and it was just a very unhealthy relationship. And we were going to get married, but we weren't because I knew it wasn't right. I knew there was just something off. And so just kind of went down a bad path after we broke up. It's one of those things where you feel like, I don't even know who I am if I'm not with this person. And just like a standard, 21-year-old
broken heart syndrome.
existential crisis, and
put on a George Strait song and
Yeah.
Take a drive.
There you go, man. There you go. And so for me, I drove straight down to the square in San Marcos is where I ended up. And so for about 6 months, really, I was just kind of, doing that whole thing, going out. And I never really had like a problem with alcohol necessarily, but it was just more, I was trying to find who I was and find a sense of like what is going on. I was depressed, I was sad. I felt alone, and I knew that I made the right decision by moving on from this person. And I knew that, I think I knew in the back of my head the whole time that I'm just like, what are you doing? But just kind of the self-loathing of all the mistakes I had made and all the stuff was just overwhelming. The depression was kind of setting in, and I just let it out in partying and hanging out with people on the square and, going to bars and stuff like that when I was 21 and just trying to figure out, what I'm doing. So after about 6 to 8 months of that, I think it wasn't really one moment that kind of did it for me, but it was more of just over time, I had started to just feel like, this is just not who I want to be. I mean, this is not who God's called me to be. This is not the path that I know I need to be taking. And so I was living at home at the time, and I kind of talked with my mom and dad about it and say, hey, like, what do I do from here? And my mom actually suggested that I go back to college. So that's actually how I ended up meeting my wife. Was I went back on campus to college.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Great advice. She's like, I think you just need a fresh start. You should get out of here. You don't.
And somebody named Lindsay.
Yeah, exactly. And then so it was just 6-8 months later after that I met Lindsay. And she's just an angel too, which is so funny. Just one of those people. It's so annoying. Like, she's never done anything wrong in her entire life. One of those people. And she's like, I always wondered what it would be like to have a testimony. And I'm like, you don't want one.
Right?
Not that kind anyway, I promise. Like, everybody has a testimony. Everybody got a story.
Everybody's got something.
But, I think the best testimony is one of staying pure and staying close to God. And, you had great family and great upbringing. And, it's
very rare.
Yeah, it really is, and I wish it was more common. And so I forgot to bring somebody like her into my life. Who, when I eventually, when we were dating, I told her kind of, hey, this is my past. This is kind of the stuff that I dealt with. And I'm not like, I don't have some massive, or I went way off the deep end necessarily, but I got some stuff. Right. Yeah. And she was able to work through that. And it was tough for a couple of days, but she worked through it. And we came back together, and she said, I feel like this is the right thing to do. I think, we belong together regardless of your past. And she was able to forgive me for that. And
so was this day 2?
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, hey, there's a little bit of wisdom in when you say these things, right? But we've been dating for a few months, and I just thought it was fair. Hey, I don't want to go any farther without being upfront about some of this stuff, because I knew she was perfect. I knew she was a little angel. And so,
and you're like, God, why'd you send me this perfect angel? I can't do it.
Exactly. Like, I can't keep up with this person, it's incredible. But I think that's a part of that self-loathing sometimes that we do, where we feel like, well, I don't deserve this person because of what I've done. Right. And to be honest, sometimes I've heard stories where somebody will say, hey, I got a pass, and this is kind of my story. And the other person's like, dang, well, that's not really for me, and they don't stay together. And, but praise God for Lindsay that she was able to see past that's not who I was, that I had moved past that. And it was a phase, and I worked through it. And she saw kind of my potential and I think really honestly, my future and our future together. And she was able to look past those things and to see who I really was and who God was calling me to be. And believed me when I told her that that's not me anymore, And so it was so powerful once we moved on from there. Because it's like it never happened, which is just so cool. And seeing everything that we've been able to accomplish together, and the church and all the other people that maybe are stuck in that phase. You're stuck in maybe addiction of some kind, or stuck, dealing with alcohol or drugs, or with anger or lust, or, whatever it is, the things that we deal with, right? Depression, anxiety. And I've dealt with some of those things. I haven't dealt with all of them. But man, I know what it feels like to be stuck. Right. I know what it feels like to be at the bottom. And man, I could certainly help you, get out of that spot and to find hope in Jesus the same way that I did, and so it's just amazing. We're in such a good place right now, and the church is growing, but it's growing full of people that are learning who they are, for the very first time. Sometimes people that have never been to church before, and then we get to see them walk this journey of discipleship and becoming like Christ. And some of my favorite people and some of the people that we hang out with today are people that didn't know God at all. And maybe they grew up Catholic, but it never really meant anything to them. I hear that story a lot. Went to Catholic church. My parents forced me to go. Didn't really want to, 15 years later, after not being in church for 15 or 20 years, I came here, and for the first time, I feel like I know who God is, and I want to learn more, and I want my family to be here and all this stuff. It's just incredible to see. And I'm just so blessed that God would use, a broken guy like me that messed up and ran away, and yet brought me back, just like Jesus. He goes out and finds the one, leaves the 99 to find the one. I felt like I was the one for a little bit there that he had to run after, but he brought me back pretty quick, slapped me on the hand and said, let's go. So
good.
Yeah,
I
man.
like
it. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I think we've gotten pretty much to the end where we can
come on,
get some rapid fire going.
Let's do it. Get a little water before we get this thing going.
You don't have to, I'll give you more than 10 seconds.
Oh, it'll be tough. All right.
But I picked ones that are pretty easy to answer, I think, so you wouldn't have to think too hard. I put those at the beginning.
Okay, cool.
So what is an unwritten rule that I believe everyone should follow? You believe everyone should follow?
Unwritten rule. Get outside. Go play. Get outside. Even if you're an adult. Go.
I like it.
Yeah. Don't sit inside all day.
How would I spend my time if I were given 2 weeks to live?
2 weeks to live? Honestly, I would just go and travel as much as I could. Go hang out with my wife, hang out with my kids, travel. I love traveling.
Where's the first place you'd go?
I've already been, but New York City probably. I love the city. I'm a city boy. I've never been to LA. Probably go out there too. So
nice.
Yeah.
What future invention are you really looking forward to?
Oh,
what's missing in your life?
Oh, honestly, I'm not looking for. It's a little crazy, but the self-driving car thing, I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I don't trust it. I ain't doing it yet.
I'd rather get in a flying car than a self-driving car.
But one day I would look forward to that. I won't be the first. I'm not going to be a guinea pig, but one day.
Good answer.
All right.
What is something you wish you did more often?
Something I wish I did more often. Honestly, hang with the bros.
Yeah.
When you're a dad of small kids, you don't get to do that a whole lot anymore.
Well, yeah. When you get married, you kind of lose some of your friends too, right?
Yeah. And honestly,
friend.
Some of it's normal, and that's totally fine. And you don't get that time as much like you did when you were in college. Right. Totally understand that, especially with the small kids,
Yeah.
But hang with the boys, even go on date nights. That would probably be another thing. I would love to do some more of that. So we got a 1.5-year-old and a 5-year-old, and so they keep us on our toes a lot. But once they get a little bit older, I know that time's going to come.
More date nights for you.
Come on. There it is.
If you weren't afraid, you would blank.
Ooh, if I wasn't afraid. I think if I started another business, probably. Yeah. So I think that's sometimes I do a little self-doubting of myself, and I have a lot of ideas, a lot of things I want to do, and but sometimes I think fear holds people back from achieving those things, and so probably start another business. I have some ideas. We'll see. You might see it in the future.
I like it. What tattoo would you have gotten if your parents let you get one at 13 years old?
Oh gosh. At 13, it probably would have been MJ, man. I don't know.
Nice.
Like the Jordan, hold them up. So I don't know, something like that. I've honestly never wanted a tattoo.
Really?
Do you have any tattoos?
3.
You have 3? I've never wanted one, and I feel like maybe one day I will.
I was 18 when I got my first tattoo.
Okay.
And it's Bugs Bunny. It's right here on my butt.
Get out of town, dude.
And my parents already know this story, so I can tell it. But they were going out of town for the weekend, and they left me $50 for food. I wasn't drinking at the time. It was my senior year in high school, so I didn't spend it on that. But I spent $30 of it on a tattoo on Harry Hines Boulevard in Dallas, Texas. Which, if you know anything about Harry Hines Boulevard, that's where ladies of the night hang out, and you shouldn't probably be there anyway. It's
a little sketch.
Place in Dallas. So Bugs Bunny is mine. That's my
hey,
first one.
We just basically said we would have had Space Jam tattoos.
I like it.
MJ and Bugs. I should have got it.
Man,
I should have got MJ.
It's not too late.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I don't know.
What is the number one perk of being your wife?
Oh boy. Hold on a second. How does this question work?
Well, it says, what's the number one perk of being my significant other? So what do you think, if I were to ask Lindsay, what's the best thing about being Trevor's wife?
Okay. Oh, I keep her on her toes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I think I do like to have fun.
Is that because you're taller than her?
A little bit. She literally is on her toes. She's 5'2" and I'm 6'2".
Yeah, that's a whole foot.
It is. That is 12 inches of a difference right there. So it is.
So
it's hilarious.
You keep her on her toes by being quick-witted,
a little bit. Honestly, she's
a prankster.
She's hilarious. Yeah. But I am a prankster. I do like a good, office prank and stuff like that. But Lindsay's so funny, but she's like that quiet funny that only the person or people standing or sitting right next to her are going to hear her little under the breath joke that she says. But I'm the one, I'll say it out loud in front of everybody. But she's honestly probably funnier than I am. So if she sees this, you're pretty funny. But
we'll make sure she sees this.
I don't like to admit that, but she is pretty funny.
What would you trade a kidney for?
For my kid, any day. If it's a choice, if my kid ever needs that, come on, I'm all for it. I'll do whatever I got to do. So, yeah, my son, Oakland, girl, Tegan.
Nice. I'd give up kidneys for them. Yeah. Not your kids. I mean, your kids too, I guess.
Yeah,
if we were a match.
Yeah, for your kids. Yeah, man.
What would be the hardest word for you to never be able to say again?
It would probably be bro.
Bro.
So unfortunate that that's the truth. But if I had to not say bro or dude, people always think I'm from Cali. I'm not from Cali.
How funny. I'm from Round Rock.
I know.
We say bro in Round Rock.
I don't have like a surfer dude Cali accent. A little bit, I do. But especially growing up in Austin, there's a whole lot of that influence in the Austin area.
Yep.
And so a lot of people always will say, are you from San Diego? And are you from Cali? And I've never even been to California, but people are like, you would fit in so well out there. Yeah, you talk just beautiful. Like one. And so I say bro and dude entirely too much, even when I'm preaching.
Start with San Diego when you go.
That's where I've always wanted to go.
It's beautiful.
San Diego. All right, well, there we go.
Well, I didn't mean to save this one for last, but it just happened to be. If everyone had to wear a warning label everywhere they went, what would yours say?
Oh my gosh. What would mine say? If this was my wife and my son making this warning label for me, it would be Daddy Stinky. Stay away. Back up. That's what they would probably say. My son, he loves to call me, he calls me a stinkeroni all the time. He said, Dad, I'm going out in the yard, I'm doing yard work and stuff. I come back in, Dad, you stinky, you're stinkeroni. I'm like, yeah, okay. So
Trevor
from
stinks.
Their perspective.
Trevor stinks, that's his warning label.
Yeah, that's it.
We're just going to end it right there.
That's it, man. That's it.
All right, well, thanks for coming out.
Hey, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
A lot of fun. Good talking to you, bro.
You too.